Yo, what's good, y'all? You dub back here again in 2020. Let's get it. Now, a very popular segment on my channel was dealing with magic videos, okay? And I had certain subs, they loved it. They loved it. There's intentionally been a reason as to why I haven't done magic videos in a while, and there are three that I'll get to, but I was thinking about them for a good long minute, for some months, I believe, at this point. One, there's been stuff on my mind, a lot of transition and turmoil in my life. He's saying, "Wonder you were doing other videos." Some other videos caught my attention. Some other videos were a lot less um, taxing on my mind, a lot less thought provoking. I wanted to make sure, and the second point, I wanted to make sure when I do these videos, I get very thoughtful, um, insightful takes on these matters. Okay. Thirdly, I wanted to break things apart because I kind of wanted those first sets of videos to do as an introduction to um, my thoughts on magic. Okay. Different takes I have. And in this video, we're going to start dealing with the types of magic. And I can do more individual videos after this if you would so desire. Um, I can do different videos on different philosophies and different things such as Wicca, voodoo, hoodoo, and things of that nature. At least the best that I am aware of, different pagan views and whatnot, and their takes on magic. That might be the next video on the different takes that some of these philosophies have that you come across. But in this video, I can also later, if you want me to elaborate on any of these points, any of these types of magic that I articulate in this video, we can do that. Now, here's the thing. Understand that different people are going to have different perspectives on what I'm about to say of these different type of things. These is definitely the elementary take on it. I'm going to give some pros and cons of warning. I'm going to be very cautionary when talking about this stuff. Some of this stuff is a hell of a lot more sinister, I will definitely say that, than others. Some of it's a hell of a lot more dangerous than others. So don't just casually, you hear some of these things, ooh, that sounds good. No, 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 no. That's one of the things I always caution about magic, even more than, let's say, certain substance usage, because of the ramifications it can do. There is a law of exchanges, a cause and effect when you do some of this stuff. Some of this stuff is a hell of a lot more benign and just honestly what we practically do already. But some of this stuff gets into more spiritual aspects and that. So, with that disclaimer out the way, let's get into it for those who are educated. Now, understand this is not intentionally a comprehensive list, but it's still 21 different types. Okay? And some of them seem so similar, but they have their own thing. So understand that sometimes you might be looking to practice something, or you know someone who practices something. And then you heard people like me, like, bro, no. And they'll be like, well, why not? Don't fall for masquerades. Know what the hell you doing before you ever do it. This ain't something just no kiddie games. It's like dealing with a gun, like dealing with a weapon. You have to know what you're doing. And it's better to know not to do than to do. Some people are wrong in their interpretations, but they're just trying to protect your ass. Understand that. Now, first off, let's talk about green magic and magic with a K. Green magic. Now, a lot of this stuff, I'll be alluding to stuff you can find in the Vertigo line of comics and DC Comics, for example. Some of it you can find in Marvel Comics as well. But green magic of the green. If you know anything about Swamp Thing, Poison Ivy, characters like that in DC Comics, they're of the green. And while they have a more fantastical view of things, what it's pretty much saying is green magic deals with the living aspects of the earth, okay, itself, plant life and things of that nature. We're not talking of the rot, okay, that's of the black, in decay in that matter. But depending on the type of practitioner, you may have someone involve themselves with decay and rot. I don't know why, because most of the power comes from life in the living, but the balance of life and death. You can go that route, but more so death is associated with a number of these other type magics. But pretty much if you think living greenery, foliage, things of that nature, you are dealing more with the green magic. Some people talk about root work and stuff. Some people talk about, herbal medication. So green magic, I would argue, is probably the safest of all magics, honestly. It's stuff you can do without even having technically a spiritual application to it. Okay? It's something that can benefit pretty much everybody. There is a little bit more to it, and you actually have to know what you're doing to really for it to be effective. But if you're interested in that one I would say is, you know, more baby step area. Next one up is a hell of a lot more questionable and suspect. Some people don't believe in it, but it's a very real thing, and it can be highly dangerous. Blood magic. We're talking blood oaths. We're talking not specifically sacrifice. That we'll deal with that a little bit later, but pretty much cutting yourself, using one's own blood or the blood of someone else. So there is some potential crossover with sacrifice. I told you a lot of these magics kind of pretty much are adjacent to each other. But using the blood of an animal, using the blood of oneself, using the blood of an enemy, an organ, blood magic, for certain gods demanding the sacrifice. But again, we'll deal with sacrifice later. But the sacrifice of blood, um, that when I talk about sacrifice, it'll be a little bit more direct towards other things. But blood magic, writing oaths in blood, okay, having symbols drawn in blood. Y'all get this, and if you like me, you get it kind of a sinister vibe. I'm pretty sure you've seen at least certain types of representations in forms of horror and various forms of fiction. So keep that in mind. Blood magic, it can be very potent, but it is costly, and that's why the cost of blood, the life being in the blood, nutrient sustenance being in the blood itself. You're making a huge sacrifice or requiring the huge toll. That's another thing you can think of. The toll of bloodletting. It's crazy. Again, we can get in more into that in a separate video if you so desire, but that's the basics of it. Next up, love magic. That one has a C. Love magic, you hear these love spells, these love potions and stuff to enhance your love life, to give you a more beneficial stuff. This is more benign. A lot of it is a bunch of hogwash foolishness, but there are some legitimate things to enhance your potential pheromone situation, enhance your hormonal connection, enhance your natural aura, your natural frequency, put you in a better state of mind, things of that nature, attract a certain type of mate that you want. Potential sex magic can be involved with it as well, using the body and the conjoining of the two to be able to produce a very powerful, effective kind of thing there. Um, I would say things like sex magic, that is a hell of a lot more problematic than a simple spell for a love potion or some shit like that. Next up, we have ritual. And ritual is just massive, okay? To simplify what ritual is, there is a set procedure, a formulaic aspect of it, okay, where you would have potentially priesthood, a group, okay, a whole potential tribal of frenzy, trance, potentially there, various prayers, various group potential sacrifice of various kinds. But this is more of a comprehensive thing collectively. It's more of a collective. You can do ritual by yourself, but you're risking a hell of a lot more backlash. Pretty much ritualistic would be to, let's say, a god who is more communally based rather than your personal gain. You can do private rituals, but the effect's probably not going to be more as powerful. Plus, you're potentially going to screw up and cause something terrible to happen. Plague, demonic possession, you name it. When it comes to ritual, as a communal group, you have a lot more control going there. And if there is any cost to the souls of a person, if you will, the spirit, it's more of a divided kind of thing than you personally taking on any kind of repercussions. Um, or you can have a communal death, so there's that too. I mean, there is a cost, depending, but it depends on what kind of ritual you do and the ramifications. Okay, um, this would be like kind of a you think of the Dragon Balls and obviously Dragon Ball. If that kind of ritual and the power that it granted. But think of the Black Star Dragon Balls in DBGT, where if you do it too much or overuse the power, you can screw up. Um, yeah, I was thinking of a couple other things, but I think y'all get the point. Next up, spells. Spells, again, you hear this all the time. There's a lot of stuff in fiction where it kind of gets wild, kind of like ritual. It's a pretty broad notion, and spells can be evoked and invoked in a lot of these forms of magic. Um, Pretty much the spells I'm talking about more so than the practicing of magic is the verbal spell. You know, can you cast spells non-verbally? Sure, but this is more in the power. There are some written spells as well. So this is more of the power of the word. Okay, casting in that regard. And it's not just oh you say something towards somebody. No, it's a specific set of guidance, okay? A specific prayer towards a certain deity or entity, a specific blessing over oneself, okay? A little bit different from personal magic, which I'll get to later, but it it's very structured, okay? Pretty rigid, and that's kind of how spell casting works. If you take as example Dr. Stephen Strange, the Eye of Agamotto, he says some things. Zatanna, Zatar, they and DC Comics kind of say specific things. John Constantine, Hellblazer at times says specific stuff. We spell casting is probably the first form of magic that we're introduced to in fiction for most of us. So there is that. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory, but it's just vague and massive and pretty nebulous with the amount of applications it can do. It's probably the largest form of magic usage that you come across. Next up, we have witchcraft. Witchcraft. There's a lot of stuff that's not understood and a lot of stuff that's understood. I'm not going to get into all that in this video. And am I an expert in witchcraft? No. But witchcraft, there's a reason that it's cautioned in certain faiths like Christianity. Okay. And it says do not practice witchcraft because the ramifications and the means by which you kind of go against, number one, goes against the faith. You're supposed to only be one God, and you're evoking other spirits, other entities, other gods to the party, and that's not with the faith. You're supposed to go to specifically Jesus, specifically that God. If you're talking about Christianity, if you're talking about, I'm don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure in Islam, witchcraft wouldn't fly for similar reasons. Judaism, similar reasons. Okay, Buddhism and witchcraft. Hinduism and witchcraft. I guess it depends on what specific faith, which specific sect of these specific philosophies that you're dealing with. But if you're talking about more monotheistic faiths, witchcraft won't fly. Now, if you're not talking about that, and even some polytheistic faiths, depending on which god you serve, you know, and if you don't have any faiths, you're more secular. I'm pretty sure you're not probably practicing witchcraft. Okay, witchcraft. I mean, again, it's like with most of these, they are adjacent. Witchcraft is probably one of the more nexus points, if not the nexus point of this entire magic tree or magic web, if you will. And so it kind of connects to everything, like a spider's web. But what would I say witchcraft is? Because next up is sorcery. Witchcraft, I would say, is the practicing of shoot, the practicing of magic focused. And you can say, well, wonder, didn't you just say you can do green magic? But green magic is for a specific set. You can practice blood magic. When I say focus magic, I'm talking more of an actual lifestyle, witches, warlocks, things of that nature. Okay, male witches. It's not something you don't practice witchcraft for a little bit. It's a no part-time lever kind of shit. It's an actual thing that you either do your entire life or for large periods of your life. You become a witch, right? This is where you're really becoming an actual magic practitioner specifically. Next up, sorcery. Now, sorcery, I tend to give it a bad rap because its adjacency is with a lot of the more darker elements on this list. Okay, sorcery, I would say, is the practice of dealing with the unnatural, um, causing things to do what they're not supposed to do. You could argue to say witchcraft, you're just dealing more on this plane of existence. Even if you're invoking the name of a god, certain practices that some witches do may be more maligned, so there's that. That's why I kind of caution against becoming a witch. But not all witches practice malign behavior, you know. But as far as in sorcery, sorcerers, you hear me rock with Dr. Stephen Strange. But Dr. Stephen Strange he would rather prefer not to, but he has no problems with black magic. So sorcery, it deals in doing stuff potentially having minds go to another plane of existence, okay? Opening doorways to God knows what, right? Gateways into other realms of consciousness that are not easily accessible. Getting power at any cost possible. It is like the dark side on steroids from Star Wars, if that makes sense for simplification purposes in this video. Next up, we have Earth Magic. Now, Earth Magic is similar to Green Magic, and I hope you'll see that we could probably even get to branches um, of these things. But Earth Magic comes again from the Earth. This is with the K. This is pretty self-explanatory. But to not just do simple things like what you have in green magic, this is like the next step up. This is like using the earth's power from the earth, power from Gaia, if you will, Rhea, depending on what your school of thought. If you're Wiccan, you might, I think, I think the female I think it was the feminine energy when it comes to earth magic. But earth magic is using the power from the earth itself, kind of deifying the earth and then some in some cases. But in other cases, it's just drawing the power from the earth. You see a lot more female practitioners utilizing this kind of magic than male practitioners, and there's a reason as to why that is. But we can talk about that at another time, or you can simply comment down below and ask why that is. Next up, we have techno magic, and this is with a K. I mean, with a C, excuse me. Techno magic, technology. And you can say, wait a second. Now, you've heard me say in the past that science is itself an application of magical principles. Getting that big old chunk of metal off the ground and flying, having a big old chunk of metal floating, that is magic, bro. It's magical principles. It is. Just because you have a scientific explanation and breakdown doesn't make it not magic now. If I were to tell you, I can send an object going across land at 500 miles an hour, you'd be like, bruh, really? And then we create a device. It's still magical principles. It's just we found a physical application. And that's the thing, that technologies allow us to do what we desire with magic, okay? Now, there's even a concept of digital in this age of the information age, and from the 80s till now, where connection with the digital world and even enhanced. And again, we could talk about that at greater. That's more conceptualized. I've never heard really anybody utilize that, but it's there. And you have some people, the singularity, AI, and other artificial intelligence, other craziness that's being proposed. But yeah, that's kind of in that futuristic ass realm. Then you have the hybridization of science and magic, where you have some sci-fi that goes into that, and you have the different cults. But again, that's another topic for another time. Next up, we have psychic. Telepathy, telekinesis, you see those results. Seances, um, I mean, y'all pretty much, I don't have to explain so much psychic. I mean, there are mediums and whatnot. So there are different types of psychics. Again, this is probably the third broadest form of magic usage. Again, we can get into that in further detail, but I'm pretty sure y'all have a general gist of what a psychic does. Next up, divination. Divination, however you want to say it. Pretty much communing with the dead is one form. Another form is involved with ritual. Okay. Um, but fortune telling. Okay, that's another form. It mainly revolves around understanding of prophecies and things of that nature, understanding the future fate, things of that nature. Pretty self-explanatory once you look into it a little bit. And it's done across the world. Again, this is one of the more benign like level kind of stuff. There's things like the I Ching with Taoism, okay, or Taoism, however you want to pronounce it. Uh, we have red magic right after that with a K. And you could ask me why did not put red magic up with green and blood magic? I just making lists, bro. But red magic. This is we deal with foliage and the greenery when we dealing with green magic, with trees, plants, and all that kind of stuff. Red magic kind of deals with animal life, the fauna. Now, remember when I talked about how earth magic was more on the feminine when it comes to energy? Red magic is more on the masculine. Can females deal into that? Yes. But they're looking for the more, and if I'm talking about masculine energy, I'm talking about like the Wiccan view of things. They're looking more, there's things like the horned god. Okay, you hear about potentially the horned god. That's why you hear, yes, you had, was it Artemis, I believe, in Greek mythology, but you hear a lot of things from Bacchus or Dionysus a little bit, Pan definitely. Uh, Pretty much, this is more animal based magic, or magic that where you have straight from the earth. This is like green magic is its own realm. Then you have, and it's called the Red in DC Comics. I'm talking about red magic. That's part of the reason I got it from. Then you have kind of earth magic doing its own thing, but then you have kind of just the animal nature of things rather than more the foliage. So you have this kind of sectionalism balance in the whole aspect. So the more specify rather than just, oh, I want to power, which god are you trying to invoke? Okay. Kind of thing. So again, we can get into that another point. Moving on, white magic. Now, I want to say this is because there's also a connotation, a racial connotation that some bring up, but we're not talking about this. When it talks white magic, I almost don't even consider it a thing because a lot of people say white magic, they're talking about everything's benign. It's like it has no. White magic, I'll say in this case, is a purification magic. For some people, they may have done, and we'll get into hexes and curses a little bit later, but they may have done some stuff, or let's say they've done some dirty deeds done dirt cheap. They've done some dirty deeds, they lived a wicked life, and they want to do things to change their lives. So they follow, white magic is more of a set of practices that you do. Um, it's more of a mental cleansing. There are things, obviously, spells and things you can do, but it's more of a mindset, if you will. And if you're already a witch or practitioner, a choice in your lifestyle of which path that you will choose. Jedi, Sith, or otherwise, if you get the reference from the Force. So it's kind of like that. Now, black magic, on the other hand, once again, very often misunderstood. Close to blood magic. Like, it's one of those that are interconnected more on, like, more the ugly nature of stuff. Um, and the thing about it with black magic is I talked about sorcery being unnatural. Black magic is malicious. It's darkness. Um, it's pretty much, if you think of the worst uses of magic, black magic. In simplification, black magic. A lot of these other ones are, we're not sure. Some I could see some potential benefit. No, not this. No. Now, this is literally you're looking to hurt. You're looking to project your hurt. You're looking to do some business on somebody's head. All right. Black magic is nothing to play with. Black magic is weaponized magic. You Harry Potter fans, the three forbidden curses or whatever you call it. I haven't gotten really into Harry Potter, but you know what I'm talking about. There. I'm pretty sure Lord of the Rings and different of Tolkien's works, you see some various black magic, like with Melkor and Sauron, for example. Moving on, we have dark magic, aka forbidden magic, arcane knowledge. And this is more of kind of like white magic, a branch of just thought. Okay. This is more so we don't know. There's a lot of we don't knows. Dark magic, it can be on the darker side, like black magic can go there. But this is more so in the realm of nobody really taps into this kind of stuff, so we don't know, or it's lost knowledge. Maybe they practice it back in antiquity. Maybe they practice it during the medieval period, or even 100 years ago, and it's lost spells. Or maybe somebody came across a tablet or something. And they're like, I wonder what this does. We don't know. Dark magic, dark, like kind of when you talk about the dark continent of Africa, during when the Europeans, yes, there were black men, obviously, but it was saying dark because they were ignorant of it. Okay, sometimes various occultic practices, they intentionally hid stuff. So there's that. Next up, necromancy. Now again, kind of like psychic, you've probably seen it. It's talking about dealings with the dead, raising the dead, things of that nature. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's plenty of videos done on it, but we can talk about it if you want to later. Sacrifice is the next one up. And I kind of talked about sacrifice a lot with blood magic because it's closely related, but this is more so animal sacrifice, human sacrifice. Yeah. Actual, organs. This is more focused, usually to specific gods, specific results. Okay. Um, one thing I forgot to mention, now, this kind of ties with love magic. Like I said, some of these are closely related. But on sacrifice and love magic, for example, you could have a potential orgy type situation. Remember, I talk about sex magic not necessarily being good. This kind of thing. You could have had, say, someone could have done some very sadistic thing, some very just ugly thing where committing the act of intercourse and then murdering somebody, or rape and doing God knows what. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Some of these things can go very dark, very very quickly. And unfortunately, it all falls under the umbrella of magic. A lot of it has to do with what you're using it for. Now we have mediums. Now I mentioned mediums with psychics because there is some crossover going there, but mediums specifically are one to understand. A medium itself is a way of communication. Okay, you can do written media, uh, visual media, audio media. Okay, audio visual. You can do a lot of types of medium, and a medium communicates. Whether this one more specifically than divination, potentially with the dead, with any um, extraterrestrial life, various spirits, things of that nature, ghosts, and all that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure y'all know what it is, but there is some communications for a medium. So if you want me to clarify that, we shall. Uh, Coming to the end, vessel magic. Now I put this with a K. I put this one in here because, for example, you can use a corpse for vessel magic. You can use oneself for vessel magic. and pretty much you can invoke a spirit into you. You can use another person. Remember, I talked about ritual, and you can do a dance and a drum, and then someone gets into a certain form and acts to see another plane of existence. But sometimes you can take your psyche out, and another psyche holistically can come in. Or maybe you divide psyches. Okay, you're pretty much using some in a potential object, a pot or something to um embody a spirit or certain power that comes. You need something to hold it. Now, inanimate objects are not as good. Corpses can do, but living, there's something about the power of life that will house things. You could say some kind of soul connection. Depends on your school of thought. But yeah, there's that. Coming close to the end here, we next have personal magic. And the reason I separated personal magic with the K is because personal magic is literally for benefit of oneself. And you can say, aren't a lot of these? Yes and no. You can use green magic, blood magic, and other stuff for a plethora of reasons. But personal magic, this is specifically for your personal gain. And a lot of people are enticed for magical usage because of personal magic. Okay? They're enticed because I want my life to be better. I want, you hear about wealth magic, doing spells for wealth, things of that nature. It's for a very individualistic gain. My family, but really for their benefit. My love life is in shambles. My benefit. Okay? It's how a lot of dark side users in Star Wars be acting. And last but certainly not least, hexes and curses. Remember I talked about black magic, being potentially very heavy-handed, detrimental. Well, here we have hexes and curses. Pretty much you fucking somebody up. That's what we talking about here. We're not playing games. You using your magical spells, witchcraft, any old Billy sorcery to target somebody and to have somebody's life become a living hell or to smite that person down. There's more to it than that, but that's as simple as it comes. You are harming somebody with your magical usage. Be very careful. If you are into that, I always caution somebody to stay away because that is not a good power energy. But understand that, as some practitioners say, you need a spiritual cleansing because you bring some negative, dark energy towards you, and it can backfire and screw you up. And screw up those who are in your vicinity as well as your loved ones. And if you have to deal with somebody who you are hexing in close proximity and throwing curses on, especially, you understand that can come back to harm you in the negative energy. That person gets sick, then you could get sick too. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You gotta be careful. And if you do that against another magical practitioner that has better, more experience with you, that has a stronger connection with a god, yeah, your weak sauce is gonna get worked. Unexpected Water, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on these. If you want any specific magic content to talk about, we can do that. I'll be happy to get that for you in this year 2020. And till next time, y'all, have a beautiful day, beautiful night. Peace. If this is your first time checking this out, I do all kinds of videos. And yeah, be happy to have you. Happy to have an intellectual discussion or debate with you at any time.